Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and happy another Wednesday to you. Great to see everyone, and great to be here. We're streaming it again. This is episode, I think, 9 of the Digital Risk Digest Live. We're pleased to be joined by a guest that needs no warm introduction, Simon Lindstedt, very popular for all the great things that he's doing with InfoSec Live, and we'll dive into a little bit what he's doing from a job board standpoint, always thinking for creative ways to add value to the community. Gentlemen, great to hear your voices this morning and great to see you guys. Simon, thanks for joining us.
It's my absolute pleasure, and thank you for the very flattering intro as well, Jeff. And before we jump in, thanks ever so much to everyone who's jumped in chat as well. We've got Carrie and Kean in there from Mind at the moment, so thanks, guys. Thanks for jumping in. Promise not to bore you with the same stories that I've been telling for the last 12 months. So we've got to talk about Thanksgiving today, aren't we, Greg?
Oh yeah, no, a lot to be thankful for, especially to have you on the show. I think, right when Jeff and I decided to take this plunge and start Valor, you were one of the first people that really came out as somebody who was looking to move and shake this industry. And it's been a great growth journey since we met, and just kind of exploring the minds, our past backgrounds, experiences. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation for everybody tuning in.
I think it just goes to show. So I spent, I suppose, previous life before the last 2 years ago, not online, not socializing with people on social media. Always had a problem with kind of the data sharing, and I'd always mocked a little bit people who had online friends. And I just want to correct that right now, because over the last 18 months, the friendships that I've developed, like with you and Jeff particularly, we've got real firm friendships, and we've never actually physically met. That will change next year, but the power of networking and the power of community is simply overwhelming, I think.
Yeah, we were at it's kind of fascinating. You mentioned we were at a local event, and somebody was talking about, the future kind of Web3, but bringing it back to the fabric of community and the connections that you're able to make, which allow things to grow, out of the fabric of that environment. So I think it's just so much to be thankful for, this week, but also every week as we get to, meet new folks in this space. Obviously, you always connect us with individuals who, are the right fit for us, either from a talent standpoint or folks that we can serve. We just really appreciate everything you continue to do for your community, but we feel that as well in our community, the impact that you're having. So wanted to make sure that was known, and looking forward to kind of the audience here and ourselves kind of learning more about what you're looking forward to over the next few weeks, few months, as you continue to build your organization.
Thanks, Greg. That means a lot. Jeff, what have you got to be thankful for? Come on.
Oh man, I have pages, I have notes here, of lots of things I'm thankful for. I'd say first and foremost, I'm thankful for, my health. They always say your health is your wealth. So, having another day to stand upright and, deliver meaningful lessons and insights, have, impactful discussions like this and interact with people out there in the world that, again, as you mentioned, that we've never maybe met before. I'm thankful for a supportive family. I got a little dog that's going on, about 15, 16 years old, and he always shows me loves and kisses in the morning. Of course, thankful for this piping cup of Joe that I'm able to drink every morning. And I'd definitely say the wonderful cyber folks out there, community is everything to us, and really has allowed us the vessel and platform to be here today. And I'm thankful to have mentorship, guidance, and friendship from the people on the screen. You guys have been tremendous in helping me grow both personally and professionally, and providing lessons learned that you've had in your life to really just help me kind of go outside the box in terms of thinking and extending myself outside of my comfort zone at times. So
that's great to hear.
List, but
it is a long list, but I think we've all got so much to be thankful for. And for me, it all stems back to, I suppose, the importance of working out what's important in our lives, isn't it? And Thanksgiving, whilst we don't celebrate it here in the UK, it's annoying, really, because we've kind of embraced, the fervor that you guys and girls have over Halloween, but we haven't, embrace Thanksgiving, which bears a lot more relevance than getting dressed up in pointy hats and knocking on people's doors. But the the important thing for me is I spent. I mean, I'm not going to bore you all with my story on here, but we'll go back a few years where I went from being a very egotistical, arrogant, successful, money-wise, multi-millionaire business owner, driven by previous ideas of success, which were shiny things, cars, wealth, and all this stuff, which, I suppose from that perspective I've achieved. But the stress of all that and the focusing on a goal that wasn't mine, an idea of success that wasn't mine, caused me to go from being that successful person to a substance addicted man who'd lost his family, lost his business and everything, living in a caravan back in early 2019. And that was the pivotal moment for me where I suddenly realized what was important. I've been clean now for over 3 years, and that was the first step on the journey. But the second step was that self-discovery. And I think one thing we've tried to do in the InfoSec Live community is encourage that self-discovery part so that people can work out what's important and not make the same mistakes perhaps that I have. But also, without those mistakes, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And the difference there is my drivers are no longer financial. I've turned down lots of high salary jobs because the focus wasn't right on my idea of success. And my idea of success now is being able to help other people. And there is no such thing as altruism, though, because from helping other people and seeing them succeed and seeing them become happier, it makes you so much happier. So it's quite a selfish act, I think. And it's also become very therapeutic for me as well, doing that. And the things I've got the most to be thankful for, one is to still be alive, as you both already said. I've had high speed motorbike crashes. I've, been in a position where I've overdosed and been very close to death in the past. And the last 2 years, for those that know me, my mum's at end of life with Parkinson's. And if I hadn't have gone through all that pain, cleaned myself up and refocused, I wouldn't have had the last 2 years that I've had with my mum, which I'm very, very thankful for. And again, that I suppose leads on to family, health, as Greg rightly said. I think you said as well, Jeff, it's the most important, because without that, we can't do anything. And I'm very thankful that my family are healthy. And moving on from there, it's, back to what I said at the start about the amazing connections I've made with people like yourself. I've spoke in the last 3 months alone to over 100 CISOs from some of the biggest organizations in the world. And having that opportunity to learn and speak to these people, I'm super, super thankful for. And whilst it's very kind of you to say all the nice words about what I've been doing in the community, I haven't really done a lot. And the thing is, with the cybersecurity industry, it's like no other. There are so many people willing to give back. All I've done is maybe connected them up a little bit and stimulated them to some action. The thoughts and the intentions were there already.
Yeah, I think that it's
full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just tremendous that you're able to look back on your life. We've all had pitfalls. We've all had things that were maybe misfortunes, and utilize those to empower us to push forward. We've thrown the word around resiliency, and what does that actually mean? But, it really shows me how resilient we can be as human beings, and how really you've taken those lessons learned and just tried to be, a better person. Right?
I mean, let's be honest about that. I mean, I was 48 last weekend, so I'm no spring chicken, and it wasn't like this hadn't happened before. So getting a bit deeper, I mean, I was diagnosed with ADHD 3 years ago, which, whilst it isn't an excuse, it has really helped me understand how my mind works, why I've got a titanium arm from racing motorbikes at stupid speeds, and bolts in my hips from other accidents where I've taken unnecessary risks. It's really helped me to understand that maybe my brain does work a little bit differently. And with becoming a great believer and a great practicer of meditation twice a day, that saved my life, I've got to be honest. And it's that related to Thanksgiving, because it's all about mindfulness, isn't it? And I think you even put that in the title, being mindful of our actions. And more importantly than that, everything stems from a thought, right? Everything that you see created around this world stemmed from an initial thought. So be mindful of what's going on there in your head as well, because your mind's a very powerful thing that can help you succeed, but can also help you destroy yourself pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, Simon, it's funny you mentioned that. As I was thinking about, going into this week, kind of obviously we focus more on what we're thankful for, but kind of trying to make that a normal practice.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought back to was a baseball coach that I had. Obviously, as a baseball player, as a pitcher, it's a very mental game. You're trying to outsmart, you know,
It's like psychological warfare, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's psychological warfare at the end of the day, and that's what he taught me. He was kind of a military background, but didn't got out of the military world for a bunch of years and started studying what a lot of us refer to as the reticular activating system. And basically, they call it the bouncer of your mind. So it's kind of you have all these thoughts, and when you realize how powerful thought is in your own mind, it can either create a war or
Yeah.
create the solution, depending on how those thoughts are being, hensed and looked upon and weighted in your priority system.
It's how you frame it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
exactly. So I think, it's full circle with what you said is we all go through these incredible experiences, either good, bad, or indifferent. And how do we let that contribute to the thoughts that are going through our mind? And Jeff and I always talk about it, asking the right questions. Kind of what questions are you asking internally? Obviously, you can ask yourself every day, what am I grateful for? And, when you go into a week like this, people are asking you. So it makes you ask yourself a few more times, which teases out just some interesting aspects, in my opinion, on, past people that have contributed to where you are today or where you're headed. When Jeff mentions mentorship, like when Jeff and I first met, he was transitioning from an IT job into cybersecurity, looking for mentorship. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is when somebody's looking at you as a mentor, you look at them as a mentor as well and learn a lot just from them. So if you can open your mind
It's
up
the
to that,
two-way. It's a complete two-way street.
so it's a
Yeah,
win-win at the end of the
it is.
day.
And
And
do you know? Let
you
me just
find
go
more
back
of
to
those. Yeah,
something you said
absolutely.
there, Greg, about your baseball coach and a comment that Carey's made in the chat. He says that he's been working on his mindset and it's been getting a lot better. And I've noticed it, Carey, as well. It's been visible that it's got better. And I want to just share something that worked for me a few years ago that I still do now. So I've always been a voracious reader. So when I'd got clean and I was refocusing my life, that the reason I came into this industry is because I've always had a passion for tech. So since I was a kid, and it seemed like a natural thing for me to do, follow an interest rather than the money. And a big thing of what I needed to do was reframe the way my brain was working. I'd gone from being very successful, I was beaten, I had no confidence, all these things. And a couple of books I read. One was called Psycho-Cybernetics by a guy called Maxwell Maltz, and it's old, it's homophobic, it's dated, it's written in the late 50s, early 60s. It isn't a perfect read, but what I liked about that, and I was studying for my A+ at the time, so I was learning all about hardwares, peripherals, all this stuff. And he said, think about your brain like a goal-setting mechanism, where what we see and what we think and what we do all day, you're programming it in. And then what happens when you're at periods of rest, your brain or your processor then processes all that information and tries to help you deliver what you're trying to achieve. So if you spend the whole day going, oh, everything's terrible, everything's bad. Well, guess what? Guess what happens, right? Everything is terrible and everything is bad. But if you can reframe that to think differently. And one of the tricks that they taught in the book was to think about a time in your life, and yours might be baseball, Greg, where you've achieved something and it made you feel, really, really special. For me, it was, I've got the picture here somewhere. I can't dig around finding it, but it was when I learned to surf. I was 22, 23 years old, living in the Canary Islands. I've been paddling around on a bodyboard for a few weeks, got a surfboard, been sort of taken under the wing of some local Canarian lads who were teaching me. And the first wave I caught, I can still remember that to this day, how good that feeling was, the feeling in my stomach, the feeling of the salt water on your face, the rush of adrenaline. And every morning when I'm in the shower, I think about that. I think about how that felt. I try and feel that and then project whatever I'm trying to achieve that day onto that feeling. And whilst it doesn't work every day, it's back to that habit forming, isn't it? I mean, there's so many books out there that you can read self-help wise, but it's all about changing habits, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we all have big goals, but we have to take steps each day to achieve them. And I think there's a lot of complexity around that where I don't know what to do because this is such a big goal. But if you just break it down, milestone, you break it down into a couple of different tasks, maybe, how you need to put that into your schedule. It becomes pretty simple, but we all go through the day with so many distractions. So it becomes, how are you controlling those distractions? And it's, it goes back to your law of attraction is you're going to put out the energy to the world of things that you want to accomplish. And, if you have the right conversations, you ask the right questions, as Jeff and I, often mention, to even random people, if you want to, meet somebody, maybe it's not talking about business, maybe it's talking about sport or something that, they're interested in. You have to connect with people first before you can kind of get to that point where you start talking opportunity. And I think that's what we've done, Simon, from your standpoint. When we first spoke, it was a lot about on the people level, kind of what we were going through as people, and how we found ways to create opportunity out of that.
It still is. We still speak regularly about that, and the support you guys give me, I can't even explain how much that's helped over the last year, because it's all very well I stand here and say about just visualize success every morning, it'll all be fine. It's not all fine. You still have days where you've got no heating, you're freezing cold in the house, you've got all these external factors and internal factors. You start to internalize everything, but it's having the ability to be mindful that that's happening and try and nudge it back. And another great book, Christian Espinosa, I think it's, what is it called? Smartest Person in the Room.
Yeah.
He talks a lot in there about what you were mentioning before, about all the distractions and things we have to do, the importance of monotasking. We talk about multitasking, which is a lie, isn't it? Let's be honest, because we never do anything. But with monotasking, that helps me. So I'll close down all my tabs on my browser. If I've got one job to do, I'll close everything down and I'll do that one job. Then when that's finished, I'll then move on to the next one. And that, I don't know if it's an ADHD thing, but for me, that's the only way I get stuff done. And hey, Paul, good to see you in there, by the way. And that is how we met. Exactly that. And that's what all of us have got in common, on screen and in chat with Paul, the desire to try and help others. I think, we've all got our own drivers for that as well, haven't we? Like I said earlier, I'm being honest, I do it because it makes me feel good. It does make me feel good. Seeing other people succeed does make you feel good, but we've all got, different drivers for that.
Yeah, I think one thing that stood out to me, you said kind of reframe your mindset. Greg and I, really where we started that kind of mentorship many years back was talking about visualization. And you'll see this in his book, Growing Into You. Shameless plug there. That's another great book that you might want to add to your list. I'm sure Greg can get you a copy, maybe even signed. But, really exercising what we'll call the muscle memory, right? So putting yourself in that seat before the event, the presentation, whatever it is that you want to achieve, really just walking your mind through that, making notes, exercising that. So that way you're positioning yourself for success as much as possible. So I really think that's something that's really
who's trained to do that? Professional athletes, Greg. All about the zone, I'm sure. I remember I never competed at your level, but I swam for my country under 16s when I was 16, breaststroke. And I remember before races, you do get yourself, if you're prepared well enough, you get in a zone before that, don't you? Was it the same in baseball?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned. So they call it the flow state, but it's basically where you've already visualized that you are in that exact situation.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, like it's meditation, but it's targeted meditation towards things that you've already kind of experienced, all your senses. So you smell, grass, you hear people screaming, you feel dirt, like, on your feet. So it's kind of like you take all 5 senses and try to visualize yourself in that position and what you would want to, what you want to feel like in that situation.
So is that what I've been doing in the shower with my surfing then all along?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what you've been doing. And it goes back to the RAS, the reticular activating system I mentioned earlier, which sounds very medical, but it's basically just a thing in your brain that filters out the thoughts. And if you can put yourself in clear thought, so when you get into that situation, it feels like you've already been there before. And then it kind of, your body just kind of takes over because your mind has already processed what you need it to do, if that makes sense. So it's just a way
it's like riding a bike in a way, isn't it? You never forget. It's muscle memory. You get on and you don't think, oh no, I haven't ridden a bike for 3 years. Am I going to fall off?
Yeah, it's like your body takes over because your mind doesn't really have to work really hard to be like, I have to push my right foot down, my left foot down. Just kind of you get into that state of, and it's kind of interesting. It's like consciousness levels. Like we have what's 5 to 7 consciousness levels, and Jeff and I always talk about kind of when you're in creative flow, like which consciousness level is that? Is that a higher one or a lower one when your body's in the opportunity to kind of learn more or not learn but act on certain things? So trying to find the balance between all of those things and making sure you're timing up where your mind's at with where your energy's at. And I think that's where you kind of get into that creative flow.
It's that flow of energy, isn't it? It's the flow of
Yeah.
and excuse me for bursting out laughing, but it was Paul's comment about Greg describing an Old Spice commercial, because I can actually remember the one you talked about.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
He doesn't sing very well in the shower, though. I'll give you that. So
No, is that right? So
Yeah.
let's talk. We've talked about. I don't know why I'm trying to take over the hosting, but I'm keen on finding out what you two have got planned for next year. What's next for Valor in 2023? Because I bet you never talk about that on here, do you?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
You go first, and then I'll visualize what that looks like on our front. So
Yeah, no, we got a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. After building something for a year, you're kind of building it while you're flying it. Obviously, we have a set of services that we've delivered at a very high level in the economy, and we've been able to kind of scale those up and down to different size businesses. We've learned a lot of lessons. Going forward, we just posted our rapid cyber threat assessment on our website. So we want to lower the barrier for organizations being able to really identify what they should be doing from a cybersecurity perspective. Sometimes that costs 10 to 25 grand just to get an expert firm like us to look across the business. But we've kind of teased out some key questions. It's about 15 to 20 questions that we feel are most important to identifying what you should do next from a cybersecurity perspective. And we're putting that out for free on our website for folks to fill out. We'll give them a couple items that they should consider on what they're doing from a cybersecurity standpoint, give themselves a little bit more certainty, lower the barrier to entry for a lot of these small businesses and medium-sized companies as they scale to get the right information. Obviously, a lot of people are on their heels. They don't know what to do. It's very complex. They just want to build and spend money on hiring people, not necessarily the downside that could happen to the organization. So we're trying to lower the barrier there. We're looking forward to continuing to serve in the private equity space. I think there's a lot of exciting things there. The economy is kind of at a standstill, I think, and it's moving one direction or the other. So we look at it as a way to be proactive. We're going out this holiday season trying to protect folks, as they're shopping and as they're doing business online, retail type organizations, as they can kind of think about how to improve the security of their transactions and try to protect the whole supply chain. That's the couple of things I'm looking forward to. But most importantly, continue to build the team, continue to infuse different expertise in our organization, and continue to build our apprenticeship program, because that's the foundation of where we're headed as a team, is being able to have an apprenticeship program where we can put them directly on projects and kind of build out the team from that standpoint. And Jeff's done an incredible job over there with a lot of those folks as they navigate new things that they may not have dove into before. And that's why it exists, open people up to new experiences, because a lot of these folks have very valuable past experience, but it just needs to be translated in a story that makes sense to the private world. So we want to be the bridge for that, and a lot of exciting things on that front for sure.
That is exciting. And I know you mentioned the fact, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, the fact that the economy's kind of stagnated. I mean, in the UK here, we're clearly in a recession. We're going to get hit worse than everyone else, I think, as well. But globally, we are still going to hit a recession. I don't think, it might be touch and go as to whether it's a definitive recession with regards to those 3 periods of drops. But one thing recessions do also do is bring massive opportunities. And I set up let's not compare it because the business went under because of my own fault of trying to buy too many companies. But I set up my last business in 2008, and it was a financial services company. And do you know what? That put us head and shoulders above all of the competition, because, you know, like you guys, you've now had a year building the business, looking at the industry, seeing where the gaps are, whereas a lot of the companies who are already established have already got their set propositions. They're not adapting, they're not malleable enough to change and provide the services that are required. And I think it's exciting times for everyone next year in the industry.
Yeah, every business I've ever been a part of, it feels like it starts during an economic like downturn of some sort. You know, COVID hit, 2014. There was a little bit of a dip in the economy, so it just seems like that's where innovative solutions really can come into the market and make a huge splash, and most of them do if you look at history. So
yeah,
I just
well,
encourage folks on the call to
Netflix is the best one,
think
isn't it? You
creatively.
know,
Yeah.
look at Blockbusters back in 2008, who had the market kind of sewn up.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all that changed completely. But people are still buying certain stocks who stock videos, but I think that's more of a meme trend than anything else. But for me, I'm super excited about next year. I mean, I like you, I haven't set up a business up until recently, but I have spent the last 18 months, I suppose, looking at the industry from a fresh perspective and getting to meet lots of leaders and have these discussions. And for me, it was trying to find out where I can add value in that. And I think I'm there now. It's just working out how this progresses, you know, moving forward. But the focus is still going to be on the community. The, again, scholarship program that we've got within the community. We've got 7 people on that at the moment from different backgrounds who we're going to take right through their examinations. A little bit more than that. I won't go into detail, but I want to expand on that next year and hopefully work, you know, in conjunction with you guys, with Whole Cyber Human Initiative, with Boots to Cyber, who are another new one that's I think Paul's working with now, and I've got Patrick Gillespie on my show in a couple of weeks to talk about that. But I want to focus on bringing the community together to try and effect change. And the other thing I'm going to try and do is disrupt the recruitment space in a big way. But we'll see. But my most exciting thing is, I suppose, my new job, which is working with ThreatGen to take gamification to the next level when it comes to education. And I've got lots of exciting conversations on the go, doing some work with a group of colleges in the UK. Got a call with him this afternoon. There isn't a specific cyber security education program for 16 plus in our colleges at the moment. There is technology levels, which is what my 17-year-old's doing, which has a small aspect of cyber. But a group of colleges in Kent in the UK, there's 16 colleges, and they've put together a pilot program for a specific cybersecurity course for 16 plus. And I'm very fortunate to have been asked to help head that up. So I'm helping to bring in all the CISOs, all the leaders to do all the talks, and also ThreatGen, the platform, is part of the syllabus, part of the curriculum. So the learners will be utilizing that gamification. And for me, trying to bridge this perceived gap, you know, this alleged talent shortage that there isn't really, because it's just a bit of a mess of an industry. There's plenty of people out there, but the way the recruitment's taking place at the moment, I think in the US, the fees are even more extortionate than they are here, which is a big barrier to some people for entry. And also the quality of the candidates that are shoved over through lack of understanding from some of the recruiters. Not all, I'll say that, because there are some really good ones out there, but a lot of them are throwing people over, not having a clue what the experience means, what the job requirements are, and going to try and turn that on its head by offering a no upfront fee recruitment service based on existing relationships with people that we know. So a referral business rather than a traditional recruitment company, where we only take payment of 5% after their probation. And what that does is that drives us as recruiters to find the right candidates for the right organizations, because otherwise we won't get paid.
Yeah, it's incentives at play, right? I think, you know, business models change where you can switch around the incentives. And I think one of the things that you've hit on, and I've heard Paul kind of mention this a few times, that really sticks out for me is the maturity journey. Somebody could come in at any, you know, they could be 20 years in the industry, or they can be, you know, 1 month. And the ability to take them through a maturity journey and get them the right position at the right time
Yeah.
That's what the industry really needs, from my opinion. And I think you guys are striking the ideal
Well,
balance
I
to
think you
build
said it
that.
earlier about your apprenticeship program. It's about relating those previous skills as well, because especially people transitioning from the military. I mean, the one thing we hear from every CISO I've had on my show is the lack of critical thinking ability. Well, I'm not being funny. There's a natural source of people for that, as there is lots of aspects of the role. You know, look at compliance, GRC. There's lots of experience in things like regulated financial services, law, lots of different professions that can be, you know, brought across and utilized in this industry. And it doesn't mean you have to come in at an entry level position either. I think that's another bugbear of mine that you see, you know, people retrain. And of course, if you haven't got the underlying IT and network knowledge, you are going to have to come in at the bottom if you're going for a technical role, because you need to know what you're doing. But for the more or the less technical roles, there's lots of opportunities out there, especially in the education space and the management space, for people who've got those people skills, those management skills, those organizational skills that can soon be related to this industry.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're you're really looking for creative ways to break down those barriers and
Yeah,
really reduce those you call it gatekeeping or what have you. You know, people have tremendous amount of passion, and you can't teach passion.
no,
If you have talented folks that are hungry, you can teach them anything, right?
you can.
So, and you know, I think one of the things that we really prided ourselves in this apprenticeship program is, you know, providing a little bit of a guiding light into what we do on a day-to-day basis, and you know, providing them hopefully opportunities to plug in to actual engagements. But during that course of learning, identifying what they really want to do, right? You talk about the nice all the different domains of cyber. When people say I want to get into cybersecurity, providing them that platform to understand what they really want to do. And if they don't want to sit in a fractional CISO, or they don't want to sit in a GRC type role doing cyber threat assessments and building out cybersecurity programs, that's okay. We're
Yeah,
completely fine with it. If it's not a good fit when it comes to what their actual desire and their journey is, you know, we want to do everything that we can upon, you know, that 4 or 6 week of our program to position themselves for that opportunity, what they want to do. So whether that's us reaching out to folks like yourself and that next kind of level of job recruitment, or people that additionally they're in our network and say, hey, we have a hungry Jen or gal that's been through our program. We could vouch for their willingness to listen, collaborate, and show up and be present. We're happy to do that as well. So
that's awesome. I just noticed there's a comment in the chat from, I can't see the name because I haven't got my glasses on. It says, talking about the NEAST work group. We've got similar efforts in education from STEM through alignment of coursework at community colleges and universities. Last week, a program started for high school certs so that upon graduation, that's really, really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to have a look. If you've got a link, that'd be great. If not, I'll Google it after the show.
Yeah, I think it's like the VOTEC. You know, here we have vocational technology schools that you can go to starting, I think it's junior year of high school. But I
Okay.
mean, if you know, we've seen universities stand up cyber ranges and things of that nature for them to practice, but the barriers are, you know, we're getting higher for a while. The barriers to entry in the space just kept getting higher until people realized like that's, you can't have no experience but have 5 years of experience and then come in at an entry level position. That's what a lot of people complained about for a long time. And I think efforts like this are kind of lowering those barriers, hopefully as low as possible, where people just have to step into the right community, just like you guys are building, and be able to thrive from there. As Jeff mentioned, you can't teach passion, but when somebody has that passion, you teach them any type of competency or, you know, type of knowledge. So that's one of the things I noticed in Jeff very early on, is he was extremely passionate about this stuff, and it makes a big difference for anybody. And I've seen it multiple times in this industry. People can have 20, 30 years experience in this space, but not have the passion. And you have to keep learning and keep, you know, your skill set furthering. And that passion, it has to be there in order to let that take place, because it's such a fast moving industry and space that we get to play in each day.
Very much so. And I see Paul said that Jeff might have a draft of what he plans to present at Nice. So maybe we could catch up on that as well, Paul. That'd be good. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity for coming on and sharing this. I feel like a therapy session today. I feel like I've had a weight lifted off my shoulders.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just nice to just kind of drop the. I mean, we said we weren't going to talk about cybersecurity, but we did. So it's kind of hard to run away from that word. But it's kind of nice to just talk about other things
Yeah,
because burnout is a real thing. Whether you're seeking a job or you're in the job and you're dealing with it on a day to day basis, there needs to be a time where you realize that you need time away from that, whether that's shutting the computer screen off, taking care of, as we talk time and time again, mental health is a huge important issue these days, and it's okay to not be okay. But taking the time to rest, recharge the batteries, walk away, spend time with their loved ones, because as you mentioned, if you don't take care of yourself and your loved ones and that network of support, you can't properly serve yourself, your client partners, your loved ones
correct.
in any sort of effective capacity. So,
Very, very true. Self care is the most important, and I think, especially as you said, this industry is very fast paced, and for people working in it, there's an awful lot of pressure. Whether you're at a high level or whether you're at a SOC analyst level, there's still a lot of pressure on those roles. And you're right, Jeff. It's taking the time out to de-stress away from that and realize what is actually important, I think, and who's important.
yeah, and I think that while I'm thinking about it, the military, the men and women in the military, both past and present, and unfortunately, the fallen ones and the loved ones that are left behind, and just thinking about the sacrifices they made going into this holiday season. They've been away from loved ones. Again, some of them paid the ultimate sacrifice. So, really being mindful of your brethren, the men and women sitting right next to you that could be on a bus, plane. Maybe engage with them, ask them what's on their mind. Maybe just talk to them because you may be traveling and just worried about getting to point A, point B to see your loved ones, but a simple question and a simple smile or friendly face can really change their course, their direction, and their outlook on life. So
Do you know
that's
what? Taking that time just to give up a little bit of time for other people, whether it's on the
right.
street when you're walking past, whether it's in
Yeah,
a shop, or whether it's on LinkedIn. If you see someone struggling on there, reach out, offer them 10, 15 minutes of your time. I do that
yeah,
regularly, and I've had some of the most fascinating conversations with people who I never would have spoken to before. And going back to Greg's point earlier about the mentor mentee relationship, it really is or should be a two-way street. We can learn from everyone, no matter who
yeah.
or what they do in life, and judging people for their job roles or their titles is a big mistake. And a quick story: one of the most influential people or smartest people I know and who I talk to on a regular basis is actually the man who comes around and empties our cesspit at our house. And you'd look at him in his dirty overalls, you probably wouldn't want to go near him because he sucks up shit all day.
Yeah.
But the guy's super intelligent, a genuine bloke, and who knew there was so much money in cesspit emptying?
Well, that's funny you mentioned that, and I feel like that conversation was needing to be had. So, at our where we hang our hat, our business location, they had a thing called the Mighty Dream Forum. Pharrell Williams of Neptunes and such, local celebrity. Anyhow, they had a lot of events going on. I bumped into a gentleman that was taking out the trash, right? And most people would, and this sounds bad to say, is necessarily strike up a conversation. Greg has probably said that I've never met a stranger in my life, so I have no problem walking up to anybody. But I just said, you know, hey man, good evening to you. How you doing? And that just struck up, a 45-minute conversation. And I said, is this your full, I like to say, is this your full-time gig, right? To just peel back the layer of the onion a little bit deeper. And he says, I just do this on the side to help my friend's business. I said, so, what have you done in your career? What's been the most meaningful opportunity in your career? He's like, career long military officer, came from the UK, came over to the US and achieved the highest rank he could in his job position, retired out, was a executive for Walmart, got cancer, and decided to just really embrace living, and then he just does this on the side, and you would
Amazing.
never know. And that was struck up a conversation like, hey, what's the most meaningful song or something that puts you at ease, right? And I continued to see this jet. I introduced him to Greg, and most people wouldn't have taken a second out of their day, I would say, to just say, hey, this guy's taking out the trash.
It makes a huge difference. And the other thing I'd quickly mention, I know we've run out of time, is you never know what's going on in someone else's life either. And taking a moment to just step back, especially if you've got ADHD like me, where you haven't got a stop button, but taking that moment to step back and consider how you're going to react. If someone's been rude or they've been, obnoxious or whatever it might be, I've really tried the last few years through my own past experiences of knowing how dark it can be sometimes in your own head, to try and take a step back and not react. And as difficult as it is, don't get me wrong, there's only so many cheeks you can turn when someone is like that. But I think rather than react and scathe people all over LinkedIn, which is what you see a lot, naming and shaming, well, maybe just think about it for a bit and be a bit more human and ask yourself if they're having a terrible day or what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tremendous thing to be mindful. We've talked about, this whole thing has been about mindfulness and thankfulness. So I think that's, extremely good way to kind of close the loop in the conversation. We've started to kind of ask, subsurface questions from our guests over the last couple of weeks. So, Greg, if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of tease us out into the conversation, saying, Simon, that, looking back or looking forward, past or future, who would you want to meet if you could meet anybody in the world, and why would you want to meet them, and what question would you ask them?
Do you want the honest answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, my mum. My mum and my dad. So I was adopted when I was a few weeks old, and they both died separately. They weren't together, but one died when I was 7, one died when I was 10, and I only found that out when I was 40. I think I found out about my real family. And what would I ask them? I don't know, really. Probably 20 years ago, it would have been, what'd you leave me for? But now, I don't know. I'd just like to know what they're like as people, is the honest answer, and see who I've, I know my real uncle. I'm very close to him. I did a bit of digging around a few years back to find my real family, and we've become very close. And unfortunately, lost my maternal grandmother, who I got close with last year. But I just think I'd like to get to know them and find out who they are. That was deep, wasn't it? Not what you expected.
I mean, as we said time and time again, beyond our job roles, beyond what we do, and what do you do for work? We're people, right?
Yeah.
We are in a people-centric business. So understanding what drives, motivates us, what's passionate, and really things that we're curious about in life is half the meaning of life. So no, I mean, we love the transparency and you giving us more insights into, really what's made you to be the man and the individual today. So
Thank
we
you.
appreciate
I really appreciate the opportunity to share it as well. It's been good fun as always with you guys. Thank you. And for everyone in the US, happy Thanksgiving, and make sure you do take the time out to actually be thankful for what we've got. And I'm not talking about shiny stuff either. I'm talking about family, those who are close to your loved ones. That's what's important, and treasure that time you have with them. Thank you.
Greg, you want to lead us out on that? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just say, ask people around you, how they're feeling, how they're doing. Not how's work been, how have you been lately? Ask people specific questions, and it makes a big difference. Jeff and I often ask each other hard questions, and things like, what would you change about an event in the past, and we're not past living, but just kind of getting your brain to creatively think with others, and bringing those mindsets together to ask them the right question. Maybe you ask them how they're feeling, and they're able to express something that they needed to get off their chest, or just ask the right questions. Be thankful. Have a great time. Everyone be safe, be secure. And we'll be back next week. Looking forward to diving back in. Simon, always a pleasure. Stay blessed, and we're here for you.
Thank you. Likewise, guys. It's been a pleasure. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. It's been great.